Hello, I'm Red Shirt Down, and welcome back to my channel. In today's episode, we're going to go through the blue creature and non-creature spells and see what cool cards we can add to the cube. Okay, let's get into it. Tenacious Tomeseeker could be an interesting card for Spellslinger decks that aren't necessarily reliant on just instant and sorceries. Let's add it for now. Looter Il-Kor is a classic looter style effect. In fact, it's even named that way. This is going to be your evasive 2-drop that can help filter through your deck and find the good spells. Tome Raider. This is just a good ETB. Let's throw that in there. Wishful Merfolk. This is a defender creature that can not be a defender creature, but we'll add it for now because we may have a defender's theme being built. Hypnotic Sprite. This is a great example of a card that gives you 2 game pieces for 1 card in your deck. Corridor Monitor is usually a combo piece. I'm going to add it for now, but I don't see it staying in long term. I don't think this is going to be a theme in the cube, but just the fact that it can tap something down every turn it attacks. Let's say, get in there for now. Jeskai Elder is a very classic prowess, kind of tempo aggressive spells deck card. Let's put that in the cube. Ooh, and Justine Thief. Kind of in the same vein, a little bit more expensive, so this is probably not going to make the cut, but again, we need to start the pile somewhere. I think I'd rather have this printing of Jeskai Elder. It's just the original, and sometimes the original is just the best. Windrider Wizard is sneakily powerful. If we end up with a density of wizards, this has a great line of text. Murmuring Mystic. This is your classic kind of control-y spells deck card. Makes a bunch of tokens, cast a bunch of spells. It's probably going to be in the cube. Filigree Attendant. We've already seen that there might be an artifact theme coming together, so let's add this in the cube for now. Cryptic Serpent is going to be the top end in a spells deck. It's great that this can get down to as low as 2 mana. This is just a basic untapper, but it does have legendary card synergies. Let's put it in the maybe pile for now. Ooh, here's a fun card from Modern Horizons 2, which cares about tokens. It makes them and lets you copy tokens. Shipwreck Dozer. Love this card to help you recur powerful spells. This is almost certainly going to be the 5-drop this cube desires. Fairy Vandal is another excellent card to have. It can become a threat all by itself. So far so good. We're coming up with a few things. Ooh, Picklock Prankster. This is exactly what I'm looking for. This is a nice, well-statted card on one end, but it also gives decks the ability to do unfair things. The self-mill might be important, and the fact that it can pull instant sorceries or fairies might be huge. Now this is funny. Good callback to Colossal Dreadmaw. Might actually have legs in this format. Let's throw it in for now. Blighted Agent. It's an unblockable infect card, but I can't imagine that we're going to be able to support infect. For that reason, we're not going to play Blighted Agent. Larder Zombie is a card that essentially lets you surveil as long as you have some untapped creatures. But it also does great if we end up building a defender deck just by having a little bit more density of the creature type. We're going to add it in for now, and I'm going to hope that we see one with the better frame. Here's another card that might support the draw your second card per turn archetype. I don't know that that's going to make it in yet, but we'll see. On its face, Air Amoeba is not a bad card, but giving you the ability to pitch a card in your hand to the graveyard might be important. Oh, another shame. I wish this card didn't have the ring flavor text. It's gonna just present problems for our drafters, who would otherwise think that the mechanics in the environment. Saruman the White does add a little bit of complexity with the Amass Orcs too. However, it also would be an integral card in a draw 2 cards per turn kind of way. Let's throw it in for now as a 5-drop we might want. Floodhound is one of the glue cards that could pull a bunch of archetypes together. It's an okay body on turn 1, it makes artifact tokens, and these artifact tokens can be used by the draw 2 archetype. I just hope we get one in the normal frame. I've always loved the Curious Homunculus. It's a Delver of Secrets that gives you extra value. Of course, being way slower than Delver, it's not going to go in the same style of deck, but it's going to give you an insane value if you flip it. Speak of the devil, we found a Delver. Windmill Slam into this cube. And right behind that is a Network Disruptor, which has a lot of great things going for it. It's an artifact, it's a rogue if that's going to matter, it taps down a thing, which already has synergies that we found elsewhere in blue. It's kind of like your perfect flying man. And here's the Coral Colony. This is one of those cards that I kept referencing. It's from Dominaria United, and it gives you a mill for the number of creatures you control with Defender. In order to make this active, we need to have a density of Defender cards in all colors. It's easy to add this in for now, because if we decide that we don't want to go that way, we can make like 10 to 20 cuts all at once. There's a better looking Floodhound. And here's Academy Wall, another one of those cards from Dominaria United. This one doesn't have any synergies with other walls, but it does help propel the spells deck into churning through their deck very fast. Sage of Latnam is a pretty cool card to have in blue. If we end up with artifacts as an archetype, it could be very valuable to have that draw card every turn. As long as we support the wall archetype, having this one body plus an unblockable attacker is going to be worth it. Here's an old school Defender. Its stats are just too small to be adding for 4 mana. Here are those Dandans. Affinity. Huge mechanic from back in the day. This is not one of the broken ones, but I think we're going to add it to the pile just for now. Animating Fairy. In our cube, we definitely are considering artifacts as a theme, especially with what we've seen so far, and being able to animate anything from clue tokens, treasure tokens, or even other little artifacts that we may need no longer is going to be great. Backstreet Bruiser is a great card as long as we're building defenders. It's got very good stats, and it has the ability to naturally not be a defender anymore. Okay, so this is the first card that we've seen that references gates. I am going to imagine that we do not have gates as a playable archetype, but if you're planning on playing with a lower powered mana base, cards like this might be invaluable to you. Giving the caster an advantage for having their lands come into play tapped to begin with is certainly one way to help mitigate the cost. Ruin Crab. What an excellent card to find. People hate this guy. Let's throw it in. And last card is Zulaport Duelist. I didn't think we were going to have enough creatures out of blue to cut from, but considering this stack, I think we're doing alright. Alright, let's get started with our instant spells. Just like with white, we're probably only going to skip to ones that are worth mentioning, because for the most part what we're looking for here are counter spells, bounce spells, card draw spells, or token makers. Contact Other Plane. When I was originally going through the bulk, I said that this card probably wasn't going to make it, but since we've already got the white one added in, could be kind of fun. Disruption Protocol. This card's amazing for a cube that's going to care about artifacts. Ring the Ending is unfortunately another one of those cards that suffers from complexity creep. By just mentioning poison counters, it gives the drafters an idea of a deck that doesn't exist. Lose Focus. Okay, here's the card we were looking for. This counters a spell unless the caster pays 2. It's got the replicate ability so you can make them pay more. And if you cast this for 1 blue, there's almost no chance that they're ever going to be able to pay for it. Una's Grace. This is going to be a fun card to help support that draw 2 archetype. It's a little expensive at 3 mana, but I'm going to add it tentatively for now. Spell Stutter. What a great callback to a great Magic card. This is probably going to get in because even at the baseline of 2, you're turning your opponents off tempo and possibly just countering it outright. Spell Pierce is another one of those that gets more powerful the more powerful your environment is. May as well give it a shot here. Stern Scolding is probably going to be a valuable counterspell in this environment. I like that it has power or toughness 2 or less, and not mana cost 2 or less. Into the Story is an excellent card if you can mill your opponent. Let's put it in for now. Logic Knot. This might be the first time we've seen the delve mechanic so far. Being able to use your graveyard as a resource when it would otherwise be inaccessible means that this card is going to get a shot. And that finishes up our instance. I think we've got a good base to build off of, and I have no problem returning if we need to have an extra copy of an effect. Okay, let's get started with the sorceries. Treasure Cruise. I did mention this when we were breaking out the packs, that this card could be one of the best cards in the cube. Get in there. Hard Evidence is one of the most sneaky good cards in all of Cube. This gives you 2 game pieces for 1 mana, one of which is an artifact token. Git Probe. Banned in oh so many formats. Let's add it. Part of the fun of Cube is being able to play cards that are banned elsewhere. Okay. That's it for the sorceries. We don't have a whole lot, but I feel good about the ones we do have. And blue would rather be playing at instant speed anyway. Let's get started at looking at the artifacts. This Goggles of Night is pretty good, especially with the few evasive creatures we have in blue. Let's add it in for now. Moonsnare Prototype is going to be for a dedicated artifact deck. Glassblower's Puzzle Knot adds another level of complexity into the environment. I'm going to add it into the cube for now if we end up with energy, even as a splash. But if this is the only card that has energy in it, it's going to get cut from the cube. Lastly, we're going to take a look at our enchantments. Frogify. I'm going to add this in as the blue removal spell. Okay in my book. Seal of Removal. This is another one of those good ones because it does have threat of activation and it might be recurable. Omen of the Sea. What an incredible find. It's a fixed preordain with some additional synergies. This is probably making the cut. Ongoing Investigation is an interesting one. It makes you tokens potentially the first turn you play it. I'm going to add it in for now, with a thought that I can remove it later. And Fleeting Memories. If we end up with Clue as a theme, it could be fun to mill people out by drawing cards. Founding the Third Path. What an excellent card that's seen some fun in Standard and Pioneer. Fall from Favor is one of those Monarch cards which is just too powerful for this environment. Okay, and that's all there is for blue. I'll see you on CubeCobra. Okay everyone, welcome back. And now we're going to check out what kind of cards blue is working with. We have about 130 cards, including 71 creatures and about 59 non-creatures. We're going to try to get that down to a more reasonable number, hopefully under 100. It's not going to be the final list, but it's going to be what we can work with before we add in any more colors to the cube. Cobbled Lancer is a cool card if we're going to be doing graveyard synergies. Let's leave it in for now. Delver of Secrets is a classic card. Not quite sure that this is going to be the cube where this can shine, but sometimes it's great to have just some of the signposts of magic. Let's keep it. Floodhound. Playing Modern Horizons 2 draft, I love this little doggy. It's an okay blocker for an early aggressive threat that later on in the game can get some massive value. Hypnotic Grifter. This was kind of added to help fill in the ones, but with the strength of the ones we've already looked at, I don't think we're going to need it. Goodbye, Hypnotic Grifter. Larder Zombie is a card that I like the ability, however, it's in an awful frame. It does have that Defender ability, which again, may become a theme in the cube, so we'll keep it for now, but it will absolutely be on the chopping block if we take all the walls out. Network Disruptor is doing some really cool things for us. It's a flying man with an ETB that matters, and it's an artifact creature to boot. Let's keep this in. Overwhelmed Apprentice is one of those cards that we're just adding to fill in to the spot. But I think with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other 1-drops, it's just not doing enough. Ruin Crab. This card's in here for now, as a nod to my fellow blue mages. Might not make the final list, but it's certainly going to fit in for now. And then Zulaport Duelist is just a body. Bye-bye, body. Okay, on to the twos. It looks like we have about 20, which is way too many. So let's go through and make some cuts. Aquatic Alchemist is an elemental that has fake prowess, but it also lets you rebuy a spell from your graveyard. That might make the cut. Backstreet Bruiser is a well-statted defender that also can turn itself on. Of the defenders that might make it into the cube, these are the most valuable. Coral Colony. Here is the first card actually mentioned that shows you why we're looking at defenders. This card can mill for the number of defenders you control, so this is one of the couple of reasons that I'm even talking about walls at all. Corridor Monitor could be a really cool combo piece depending on what else we see. Worst case scenario, it just gives one of your creatures vigilance when it comes into battlefield. Crosstown Courier is the first 2-power creature we've seen. That said, its ability is just too limited for a 2/1 body. Curious Homunculus is a bigger Delver of Secrets. More expensive, but it gives you more body and more abilities. Let's keep that in for now for the spells archetype. Daring Sleuth. This is one of those cards that cares about clues. It's going to be a spells matter type of card. Fairy Vandal. This is the first card we've seen that cares about how many cards you draw in a turn. There are a few cards in blue I opened that care about this, but even without them, this card is pretty strong. Philology Archaeologist. This card is an all-star if we want to have things in the graveyard. Hypnotic Sprite is a mediocre body with a mediocre spell attached. That said, sometimes having those 2-for-1s do matter. Jeskai Elder. Great card for a spells archetype. Literal Core is a classic in the genre. Merfolk Trickster is a pretty cool shutdown kind of combat trick. For now, we'll make this in, but this is one of those cards that's going to be on the bubble. Parselmere has a lot of relevant text, including the fact it's a clue. But that said, at this point we have so many 2s that we already want to play with that we'll cut it for now. Pelargir Survivor, it's not going to do enough. Picklock Prankster is another one of those cards that helps you self-mill. It's got a better body too than the other one. So maybe what we're going to do here is we're going to pull out the Philology Archaeologist because they both represent the same space. Raving Visionary is a terrible looter. That said, even if you're assuming Delirium is online, it's still 3 mana to draw a card. Not bad, but you don't really want to be spending 3 mana to draw a card in this cube. So we'll cut it. See, this is much better. Sage of Lot Nam, you sacrifice an artifact. This can get rid of your clues for free, or trinket artifact, even possibly artifact creatures that are trump blocking. Sky Theater Strix is another prowess creature. This one flies. Jeskai Elder loots, and this is just a body, but it has a spell. I think of the 3, the Strix is the least valuable, so we'll cut it. Stormfleet Aerialist seems like a decent body. Let's keep it in the cube for now. Vidalcan Infiltrator, these 2 are doing a very similar role too. I think of the 2, we'll keep the Infiltrator because it helps suggest that there's an archetype with metal. I think this is going to be removed. Alright, and Wishful Merfolk. This is another defender creature that can turn itself into an attacking creature. Gives it a win in the defender archetype. Alright, on to 3s. Starting with Academy Wall. This is another card out of Dominaria United that doesn't explicitly care about walls, but was one of the major players in the wall archetype. We'll keep it for now for the archetype, but if the archetype comes out, this is coming out no problem. Animating Fairy, but being able to animate clue and artifact tokens or other trinket artifacts make up for it. Burden Aerialist? I don't know. I don't love this card. I think it's on the bubble, and we'll figure it out before the end of the 3 drops. Coral Barrier is another wall. I actually kind of like it better than the Academy Wall because it gives you an attacking body. Even in the 3 drops, we don't need 2. We'll have to make a decision on that as well. Ethereum Spinner is a cool way to get bodies if you're casting big spells. Let's keep that in. Ice Rot Sentry. This is a cool ability that's usually given to white. 3 mana for a 2/3 with Vigilance isn't terrible. If you pay 2 on the attack, now you have a 4/4 Vigilance. I'm here for it. Ireth of the Healing House. This could be a cool combo piece in the same vein as Corridor Monitor, especially if we end up with a lot of legendaries, which is a possibility. Gisean Thief. Here's your prowess creature. You don't really want to block it, but if you don't block it, it just straight draws a card. Great card, great card. Moonfolk Puzzlemaker. It has a lot going for it, even being an artifact creature, but it's just not enough. Queen of Ice. I don't love it. Tenacious Tomeseeker seems like an interesting way to get spells out of the graveyard. We'll keep it for now. Tome Raider. This is your Elvish Visionary that flies. Not bad. Windrider Wizard. This and Academy Wall are fighting for the same spot, and I think of the 2, we're going to pull out the Academy Wall, and that makes the choice to keep Coral Barrier even easier. And I think with that said, we're also going to remove the Burdened Aerialist. We've got 15 cards down so far. We're doing okay. Now we're into the 4s and the 5s and mores. We're really going to be making a lot of cuts here because we only want to have a couple of 4s, possibly a 5 or 2, and maybe something expensive that can get reduced by something. Also, while we're here, we're going to reduce this from 9 to 4 because you're going to want to cast this for 2 and 2 blue. Alright, let's get into it. Aramoeba is a cool card because that discarding a card seems like a cost, but it might actually be a benefit. Filigree Attendant, again, is an artifact that kind of suggests that you want to do artifact things. Sure. Galvanic Giant. I like the idea, but I think a 4-mana 3/3 is too slow. Hulking Metamorph is going to make the cut because it's a 4-mana 3/3, copy your best creature, that has loads of potential upside. Knights of Dalamoth is a 4-mana 3/3. It rewards you for playing that second card a turn, but at that point in the game, it doesn't matter. Latinum Adept is the same idea. I mean, these are legitimately the same card, except one's a human knight. So that's also gone. Murmuring Mystic. Here's your spell's payoff card. Let's keep it. Organ Hoarder. Again, its just stats are too low at 4 mana. You want to be doing big things, just like this dinosaur. I don't love that it sacrifices itself because it's an illusion, but it'll make the list for now. Skull Over the Stars. Again, it's a 4 mana 3/2 body. It's just, they're too small at this point. See, this is kind of exactly what Scholar of the Scars was doing, but almost a little better. And then Thunder Drake is the last of the spell per turn thing. And I think with that said, we've decided that that's not going to be an archetype. Fairy Vandal, though, is pretty good because it also works at flash speed. So maybe it earns its keep. All right, into the 5s. We are legitimately going to have 2 at most. And Body Double isn't going to be 1. What a commander card. I don't like either of these bodies. I know that the idea is they're going to come down for 1 or 2 mana. I think of the 2, I'm going to keep Steelfin Whale, but I can imagine that this isn't going to make the final cut either. And then Cryptic Serpent is your spell's payoff. This is a toss-up because I like the body on the Sapphire Dragon better, but I like the spell side of Sword Coat Serpent better. I think this 3 mana limited counterspell is much, much worse than the Capsizing Wave. I can imagine a world where you absolutely cast the Capsizing Wave and then at some point hopefully get your Serpent, whereas this, you probably almost never want to cast a 3 mana limited counterspell, so we'll take that out. Okay, that finishes up our creature section, and it looks like we've gotten rid of 30 cards already. That's not bad. Okay, now we're back with the instants and sorceries. These aren't necessarily going to be very exciting to cut through. We're looking for, cantrips, counterspells, bounce spells, card draw, and some tapping cards. We only want to have a few of them, so we're going to pick the best and some of the cheapest, unless I think the card itself is too powerful for the rest of the cube, and we'll cut those as well. Minor Misstep is an interesting one. If this cube was higher power, this would actually be a pretty decent card. But considering that this is going to be more of a mid-range fest, I don't think it does what it needs to do. Stern Scolding, this is the spell that we're really looking for in blue. 1 mana, counter almost every 1, 2, and a good chunk of 3s as well. Thought Scour might be valuable too. I think of the 2, I would rather have Thought Scour over Otherworldly Gaze, but we'll keep both for now. Runaway Together is a really interesting card because you're going to be targeting something of yours and something of theirs, and hopefully you're going to get massive value off the creature you choose. Spell Stutter, great callback to a great card. I like that Spell Stutter is not limited the way that Spell Stutter Sprite is, so that you can just counter any spell, but they can pay extra. I think given a choice between Think Twice and Una's Grace, I'm going to choose Una's Grace. They're basically the same card. Steady Progress. Okay, so that's 3 mana draw cards in a row. We're probably not going to keep all of them. I can imagine not keeping Steady Progress in the long term, but for now we'll keep it in, especially if we have these stun counter cards. Gitaxian Probe is banned in a ton of formats because of how powerful it is. And giving players something that is absurdly powerful without doing a whole lot is a lot of fun. I'm probably going to move it to a colorless section when we get there, because this is a spell you're paying with the 2 life almost all of the time. The same thing I said for Gitaxian Probe can be said for Treasure Cruise. This card is absurdly powerful, so powerful it's banned in formats where you could run it as a 4 of. Having those kind of lofty goals for your drafters can really draw them into an archetype and get their blood pumping. Glassblower's Puzzle Knot will stay in the cube for now. If we only get a couple of energy cards, but having a 5 mana to scry 2 and get 4 energy, only if energy is in the cube. Goggles of Night is a great equipment to repeatedly get card advantage and suggest to your drafters that they should be getting in there with combat. Seal of Removal. This card is very similar to Soul Snare in white. As long as we have any kind of recursion, this card is much, much better than an instant or sorcery that does the same thing. It has threat of activation, and then after you activate it, if you have a way to bring it back, it can do it again. Founding the Third Path. This is another card that really can help you get your end goal. It's great that it casts the instant or sorcery right away, immediately turning that mana into mana positive. I'd rather have the instant version. Fleeting Memories is another one of those weird mill cards. I don't think mill is going to be a viable archetype, but I do like seeding a couple of mill cards into an environment, just because there is a player somewhere that's going to love it. No. Okay. And now to take a look at our 2 multicolored cards. Battling Mystic is a decent body. It's a 2/1 flyer for 2, and if you kick it for 1, you get some cards. Ongoing Investigation. Would I rather have repetitive? This is fighting with Fleeting Memories. Fleeting Memories gives you a token, and then an ability when your tokens trigger. This can give you a bunch of tokens forever and ever. So would you rather have the 1 token with the mill or repetitive tokens? As fun as it is to imagine a world where you can mill out your opponent because you're drawing cards, we're going to take that out. Ongoing Investigation seems like a much better card to have. Okay, so we've removed another 21 cards from blue. This gives us a much more manageable number to cut from later. You can find the cube list, which is currently in progress, in the link down below. Feel free to leave me any feedback about how you think this series is going, especially when it comes to today's question, which is, would you rather have these episodes split in 2 and get 2 episodes a week, or do you like it as it's currently structured? And as always, thank you for watching.